Good evening. It is 6:30 on December the 10th,
Can you push
2020.
the button? Sorry.
I did.
Oh, is it?
It's green.
Oh, okay.
Tap it.
It just sounds quiet.
Okay. All right. Good evening. It is 6:30 on December the 10th, 2024. My name is Tracy Scheel. As the vice chair of this committee, I call the Planning and Zoning regularly scheduled meeting to order. All right. Number 2, approval of the minutes.
We have to do roll call.
Oh, roll call vote, sorry.
Delory, Webb,
Present.
Stiegel,
Here.
Onken, Scheel,
Here.
Hauk,
Here.
Serrata.
Here.
All right, we have 5 members and we have quorum. All right, approval of the minutes.
Madam Chair, make a motion for approval of the minutes as presented.
Second.
All right, a motion has been approved by, Commissioner Stiegel and seconded by Commissioner Serrato. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes 5-0. Citizens' comment period with Planning and Zoning Commission. Citizens' comment period. The Planning and Zoning Commission welcomes comments from citizens early in the agenda of regular meetings. Speakers are provided with an opportunity to speak during this time period on any agenda item or any other matter concerning city business, and they must observe the 3-minute time limit. Anybody out there? All right, with none, I will close citizen comment period. Number 4, item 2, consent agenda. Does anybody need to pull consent? Okay, then item number 2 is consider approval of a final plat for Hays County BBQ located at 505 South Old Highway 81. And please mute your phones. Do we have any motions?
Motion to approve consent agenda item number 2.
Second.
Okay. Motion by Commissioner Hauk, seconded by Commissioner Serrato. Oh, Serrato, sorry. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes 5-0. Consider and possible action. Consider approval of a request for revisions to the building facade located at 250 Chula Hill Road, and this is ProSource. And Mr. Jason.
Good evening, Commissioners. Give me 1 second. I'll start my presentation today. So this is CUP 240120. This is a ProSource. Some of you may have remembered this project. I believe some of you are on the boards. For others, this will be new, so I'll try and go over a little bit of the background. This project is located at 250 Chula Hill Drive. This is Hays Commerce Center. This is a planned unit development district. It's approximately 375 feet from I-35 along the frontage road. You can see the property highlighted in blue there. Make sure the slide shows. There we go. Again, I mentioned this is a zone for PUD. It does allow the proposed use. There are some alternative landscape requirements via the PUD, but it also applies to the I-35 overlay and it's kind of dual zoning. So the elevations were approved by P&Z on August 8th, 2023 with modifications. I believe what was presented, P&Z had made the motion that they were looking for additional awnings be placed on the structure. But they weren't sure exactly which ones or where, so they allowed staff the authority to approve those versus bringing that back to P&Z to kind of save some time. So if you remember, these are the original elevations that were presented to P&Z. There was a couple of doors that were missing some awnings in the rear. And then when we went through and paint colors here were approved. However, when we looked at the site for final site inspection, we noticed there were some changes. So the applicant had originally resubmitted those elevations after P&Z. They had additional awnings over the regular and overhead doors on the rear of the building. However, during construction, the additional awnings were placed on the front of the building. There's some entry doorways there to the main structure. So they moved those from the back to the front of those, and most of the rear ones were removed. The main entrance doors still have their awnings for functional rain, but the overhead doors, those awnings were removed, which makes some sense because those are 18-wheeler bays coming in. So, staff supported those changes. We felt that that was appropriate, and so we approved the subsequent plans. However, during the site inspection, when we went out there, we noticed not only were some of the awnings missing over the back, sorry, I need to redo that statement. Originally, we didn't know about the awnings being moved to the front until we did our site inspection. And so we had approved the ones on the back and none on the front. So when we did our site inspection, we saw that they were missing some of the awnings that were approved, part of that updated in August. So we made a note, but you can see they added some on the front here. It's kind of hard to see on this elevation, but there's some functional doors here that some awnings were added. Again, the issue was the applicant originally showed those awnings, but we had no issue. But then there was a secondary discussion, and that was these roll-up doors here. So if you see here, these are not glass segmented, but in the proposed renderings, this is what was shown. I know it's a little hard to see. And so the glass segmentation is a requirement of the I-35 overlay, so we did flag that as an issue for us as we go through the site development. Here's a side-by-side, so the previously approved versus the installed. So the applicant is looking for approval of this switch out in regards to that. And then again, we want to finalize the awning relocations. So you have some options ahead of you tonight. You can approve the requested CUP. You can approve it with additional modifications, or you can deny the requested CUP. Right now, staff recommends approval of the modifications on the placement of the awnings. Those all made logical and perfect sense. But staff recommends the denial of the modifications to the overhead doors. Just simply, they do not meet the I-35 overlay standards. So the applicant's here. He can speak to that. Or if you have any specific questions on the zoning regs, I'll be glad to answer those. Commissioners, I'll turn it over to you, and you can ask away.
Any questions? Okay. Okay, please do.
Hello, my name is Bobby Spears.
Come speak into the microphone.
Hello, my name is Bobby Spears. I'm representing ProSource. Sorry, I don't know if y'all can hear this.
Yeah.
So this is in the I-35 overlay, but it's also in the PUD. FedEx building is also in the PUD, and the building next to it is in the PUD, along with there's multiple buildings, including Costco, Lowe's, Academy. They're all within the I-35 overlay district. None of those have glass segmented overhead doors. These overhead doors face a warehouse with nothing but racking and inventory, where semi-trucks, they back up into it, they load, they unload. It's really not a real pretty area back there. It's kind of the trashy area. That's why it's in the back and everything else. So the owners, we did change the colors based off, I think it was Mr. Stiegel, there was a little bit too much blue in the first rendition, so they tried to, tone the blue down. But mainly we've had, in the last 14 months, 4 police responses to break-ins there. 3 were on this property. The other one was next to the used car dealership. That's our next door neighbor, the Tote and the Note Lot place. So it's not only a security thing, but it's just also the customer, you don't want everybody seeing into the inventory. It's kind of their trashy area, and they want to keep it kind of covered. And it fits the PUD, same as FedEx, it just kind of fits the area. So just wanted to throw that out there. I appreciate y'all taking the time to hear me out.
Okay. Jason, can you respond?
I can't speak to any police reports. I'm not aware of that. I didn't do any research, talk to PD about that. As far as some of the other overhead doors, without going back and through and seeing what dates those buildings were constructed, I couldn't tell you if the I-35 overlay was enacted at that time, or if that was done prior to that. But as you guys know, P&Z does have purview to make modifications to those I-35 overlays. So there could be situations where a former P&Z board didn't think that was necessary, or that was what was requested and that was approved. There's a lot of options for that. But staff doesn't go through, we don't review based on historic, what's been done or what the neighbors are doing. We're reviewing purely on what the codes say in effect at the time that the building is being constructed.
Okay, thank you. I would like to hear separate motions for this, if we don't mind.
What's the authority to make, like you said, the neighbors who don't have those glass segmented doors, to make those businesses put those in, right, so that they are in compliance with the I-35 overlay?
At this point, we wouldn't have any authority to kind of retroactively go back. Now, if they went through a remodel and they were adding some bays, or they did want to change out the doors for whatever reason, enlarge them, bigger trucks, or make some modifications, at that point, you would have the purview to come back in and say, hey, yeah, you need to adhere to that overlay.
Sure.
Generally, anything they do that comes before us, we make our comments, we tell them what's in compliant, what's not. We always try to get 100% compliance. As you know, that's not always the case on some of the requests. So there have been times where y'all have approved less stringent requirements in the I-35 overlay, and there's been times when P&Z has approved more stringent requirements. So that is within y'all's purview.
Just to confirm, these are just delivery bay doors? Okay.
Yeah, yes, sir. And we started this at the same time.
Sorry to make you flex your public speaking today.
Sorry about that. We started this around the same time the FedEx building did. And then also Academy started after us, finished it obviously before us. We had some changes and everything, along with Costco started after we started. So as far as timeline, and those are just 3 examples that I know that's happened. They started after we started construction, so they're newer buildings around the same timeline. And these are where semi-trucks and trucks and trailers back up to. It's nothing, it's not a pedestrian walkway area. It faces a retention pond and the City of Kyle lift station. So, thank you.
One moment, please. One moment, sir. If I may address a question to you.
Yes, sir.
You referred to we. We started building before they did, and you listed Costco and several other businesses. What we are we talking about? Because this is a planned unit development, so.
When I say we, Spears Construction, North Texas Drywall and Construction, and the customer. And when I say we, I guess it just means our company in general, along with ProSource, partner up trying to bring this to, along with we also did the majority of the utilities for Hays Industrial Phase 3. Sewer lines, fire hydrants, part of y'all's lift station there also. So we've been involved in this, I don't know if you'd call that a neighborhood, almost since its creation.
So I get stuck on this particular project because one thing, I'm having a hard time getting my head around your organization having started before Costco. We could look at a calendar to deal with that. Nevertheless, the real issue I have here is coming under cover of a planned unit development. Okay, this particular tract I would have very fresh eyes if this were a new PUD.
I'm deaf in one ear, so sorry. I'm not trying to be rude. I'm just trying to hear you, sir.
I would have very different eyes looking at this if this were coming before us as a new PUD. This is what I believe I called the zombie PUD back in August of 2023, in that it was approved in 2011. And so I really struggle with what the city had done at that time, and then find it very hard, nevertheless, later to be sitting in consideration of any development there without having a very keen eye as to whether or not this meets current standards, including the I-35 overlay. I don't know the history of that PUD past the time it was approved, but obviously it sat there for 13 years. And nothing happened. Now we've got something here, and what my sense of it is there's been a lot of small changes. My orientation to a PUD is that there's a lot of small changes always with a PUD, and I don't necessarily like them. They have their role, though. I understand that. But when, after the fact, we looked at a site plan and elevation and so forth, and we agree on something, and there are changes after that particular point, I don't see those as discretionary. That comes back to staff, that comes back to us. And I frankly don't like the way things got moved around as I'm hearing it. And I'm really concerned certainly about security in most respects and most occasions. But this to me is an issue being on the I-35 overlay and to whom that is visible. As I understand, this is not just a warehouse operation, is it?
No, so part of it, they have a showroom up front, and then in the back of the building, they have a warehouse.
Right. So it's a retail warehouse. I would just say for the record that I have a hard time supporting a change away from the segmented glass or clear materials on the overhead doors.
It's not, it's wholesale. Usually people can't walk in like Home Depots. You have to be a
Right,
member and
right.
everything like that. It's meant for contractors and builders to come in. They have, the contractors, they use their showroom. They have set pricing. They use their conference room and everything else like that. It's not really meant for like Home Depot and Lowe's type retail businesses. And according to the PUD, which FedEx is also part of that, so is the other buildings. This isn't just one piece of property. According to Section 15 in the PUD, changes to Development Plan 15.1, minor changes and minor changes to this plan, which do not substantially adversely change the plan, may be approved administratively. So, but I guess these overhead doors and the awnings were on the last meeting were, they said, at the discretion, same with the paint scheme, at the discretion of staff. So I respect what you say. I don't know the history of the PUD, sir. I just
Right,
know
you're
that's
just
the
working
customer
with it
bought
now.
it, and that's what the codes we're going off of.
So the changes administratively would be by what administration, by what party or group?
Well, we haven't done any. We're taking them all to y'all, you all.
Okay. But
I think, just to clarify, I think, that section of code is in the PUD, doesn't specifically speak to this nature. That section of code speaks to the overall concept plan and site plan that was started with the PUD. So it's very specific, and you saw a concept plan with some lots and some roads, and that section allows administrative changes if we're moving a road here or there, kind of shifting in between. It doesn't grant carte blanche administrative approval on other sections of the city zoning code. So you guys gave us the authority to look at the elevations and modifications on the awnings. So staff did that. Unfortunately, you did not give us the authority to approve anything else, so that's why we're back tonight with the doors. And we thought, well, while we're here, we'll go ahead and show you the changes in the awnings as well.
Sure. And so the recommendation was to not to approve it, though, and passing it back to us.
Yeah, so staff recommends approval of the awnings, but the doors, again, I'm not going to stand up here and recommend approval for things that the code doesn't say. Again, if in your purview, your judgment, you want to make alternate changes, that's within your purview, then we'll finalize those and work with the contractor. But from a recommendation standpoint, the code is the code. I don't get to judge it whether I like it, love it, hate it, or leave it. I get to judge whether it meets or it doesn't. So.
and okay. Any other questions? I do have one question, and this is more for Jason. If we do deny this and they need to put in the glass doors for security purposes, can they put in like a blackout film on the inside to, keep people from being able to see inside it?
Yeah, I mean, window
Okay.
tinting on there, if the doors meet on the glass and you wanted window tinting for security, that would be within your purview. To
Within
add that.
ours, we would have to approve that, or could they just do it?
I don't think, actually, we would need approval for the
Okay.
tinting. There's nothing in the code. It just talks about the segmented glass doors.
Okay, thank you.
I would like to speak on the code. The I-35 overlay actually has a chapter for this, and it specifically says warehouse, mini warehouse, and overhead commercial service doors shall not be oriented so it faces the streets or residential property, or shall be screened from view from the streets or residential property unless approved directly by planning. And then the next chapter refers to garage doors, where garage doors in heavy pedestrian traffic areas are to be 50% glass, and it goes into the intent of that purpose. These are not garage doors. These are commercial overhead doors, which is an entirely different chapter than garage doors for heavy pedestrian walkway and use areas like restaurants where people are sitting, and it even goes into the open environment, nice, friendly, open environment. That is not what this is. These are warehouse overhead doors, which is listed in the I-35 overhead district, separate from garage doors for pedestrian use in heavy pedestrian traffic areas. So we also have an interpretation thing. These are not garage doors. These are warehouse doors as listed in the I-35 overhead district.
If I may, though, that you described this project as a retail business, correct?
No, sir. This is a wholesale company.
Okay.
Contractors come in. You can't go in and just buy flooring or materials there. You have to be a membership. It's contractor based. Insurance has to be submitted. There's a whole process that goes into this. Now, if you want to go in there and purchase materials, they'll give you a list of approved contractors, installers that already have their insurance done, or ProSource has already backed them up and everything else, and then you can buy it through them. But it is not open retail where y'all can go in and buy a faucet or flooring or anything else like that. This is a contractor wholesale area.
Thank you, sir.
Thank
Okay, any motions?
Hey, Jason, can you pull the two options up again? I don't seem to have them on this.
Yeah, give me a second.
I just would like to say, though, that the tinting on the glass doors, is that something that ProSource would be okay with as a security measure, at least?
No, sir. It's more than just the tinting. It's also how easy it is to get into glass. Sorry. It's more than just the tinting. It's also how easy it is to get into the glass. What happens if a forklift accidentally hits it? It's also, y'all are talking about a change that's going to cost about $150,000 in change overhead door sprinkler systems. It's how sectional overhead doors work with the dock levelers. It's a whole combination of things. In ProSource, they drive up and down. No one else is forced to have it, and they just don't have it. They're not used to it, and they don't know how glass is going to react if the door gets bumped and how easy it is for somebody to get into a glass overhead door versus a normal loading dock door. And again, this is facing a city lift station and a detention pond. There's no residential area. It's literally facing a
Yeah,
sewer
this
lift
is
station.
this is a tough one. I'll give you that, right? I mean, none of the other businesses around have these glass roller doors like you're talking about.
Correct.
But we did, put that requirement in place for a reason, right? And there's got to be a middle ground to meet at, right?
Yes, sir. You put the garage doors being glass requirement in, which is a totally different chapter in the I-35. And then you also put the requirements for commercial overhead doors for loading areas in a totally different chapter, which does not have the same requirements as garage overhead doors with heavy pedestrian walkways.
I'm completely conflicted on this one too. I understand where you're coming from because, being in the supply chain and logistics industry, drivers back into doors, forklift drivers bump them. I could see it being a real pain with it being glass. And I see it as a safety measure as well. That's where you're holding all your inventory. I understand the concept too of like the showroom. That's where all the folks hang out and pick what they want. So you want your inventory to be guarded much better than a glass pane door. So I see where you're coming from.
Yes, sir. I appreciate that. Any other questions?
Can we go to that screen of the two different? Yeah, the staff recommendations screen.
I guess to start, we'll motion to approve the modifications to the placement of the awnings, to approve the awnings themselves, right?
Okay. So it's,
I'll second that motion.
Okay.
Okay. All right. So we have a motion from Commissioner Houck and a second from Commissioner Webb. Any discussion? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes 5-0. And then next,
Second one's tough.
I know.
Because we have to approve the code, right? Otherwise, there's no point in having a code, right? I mean,
But we have made modifications.
sure.
We have made exceptions.
And these just face the back, right? They don't face like 35 themselves, right? They just face a.
I mean, if you're driving down 35, you can't see them. I mean, we're talking
Which side?
500 plus. I don't know if you can see my cursor on the
Yeah, yeah,
screen.
yeah.
Those doors are going to be back
Oh man, they're not even facing the street.
on this side, so
like-
they're not a direct to the I-35 if you were, say, perpendicular. I mean, obviously, if you're driving down here, you'll probably be able to see them. That'll probably put you at, just rough estimate, 600, 700 feet, I mean, visibly, so.
The car, the unit tilting the lot place blocks all of it. You can't see them from the upper side. These are facing in the back.
Yeah.
They have all the storefront facing the highway. You can't, this customer likes to, they don't want a trashy building. You're gonna see the note lot place, you're not gonna be able to see, it screens it, and then the detention pond, and it's so far back and the building's offset. You can't see the overhead doors, they're not facing the streets or anything else like that. So
What if you
they're just,
think outside the box here and do like an Art Mueller on the doors? You know, like
I don't know how to like show y'all, but the location of the doors, I can point at the big screen. I don't know if y'all can see what I'm talking
just
about.
paint them to look like glass panes, right? I mean,
So, but anyway, thank you.
thank you.
Just as a point of discussion, I've been through a similar process with a commercial building, so I understand kind of where he's coming from. I also understand that, like, we got to enforce the code. I think for me, what it comes down to is the expense to remedy the error versus what it actually accomplishes. I would love for it to be 100% up to code, but understanding the costs, and it's not just the same door with a different, with glass on it. It's a whole different structure that requires a lot of modification. It's a big expense for a warehouse
delivery
door in the
door.
back,
Yeah.
essentially. Don't love it, but
Yeah.
I think that's my practical take on it.
It's
Yeah.
the right thing to do. I mean,
My only issue is the fact that on the plans that was submitted by the companies show glass doors. And somewhere, somebody within the construction side of it decided, let's just go ahead and put in regular overhead doors without going to our planning staff or, us in the first place to change that. So I have a that's where my problem is they just decided to change the plans without getting approval in the first place. So that's where I have a problem. And so,
yeah.
So the concept plans were the concept, that's what the architect drew and submitted and everything else. And then when it went through engineering and all the plans and the tilt wall plans, the engineering to, the panel book and everything else and with the customer, the architect on record, I guess, never, so we have an early concept of which this blue bill, which is a cartoon. If you look at the first one, has very little to no dimension control. It's like just a rendition of a concept of what this is going to look like, not a engineered drawing of what this is actually going to be. It's just a concept for y'all to look at. And then during the process, after all the actual engineering gets completed of what we can and can't do, and the customer meets with our architects and the engineers, and they do the panel books and everything, then that all got submitted, but the architect never, I guess, resubmitted or anything else like that. We were just going off the approved permit drawings that were on the portal, which are different than the concept drawings, which are not are permit drawings. They're not the engineered stamp permit drawings. So y'all are looking at a concept architect stamp drawing that this is about what it's going to look like, versus we're building off of the approved permit drawings that are on the portal that have the engineering dimension controls and everything else, instead of just
I
kind of a
understand that
picture.
you have to work within the confines of what you have to work within. What I'm curious though, because I wasn't here when this was approved the first time, what was that drawing, that the cartoon that he said, the one with the glass panel doors, is that what was approved by the last whoever was up here? Right.
That
So
drawing
that
does
that
not-
was the official thing brought forward to the
It does not
committee.
meet international building code. It has, this is type 2B construction. It has wood awnings and wood and plywood awnings on it. I mean, it was mainly a picture. So, sorry.
I mean, I think we can talk process a long time. I think the issue is pretty straightforward. It is a tough decision. I will say, ultimately, there have been some mistakes made on this, and that's why we're here. Plans were submitted and construction drawings were drawn without ever coming here. So normally you would see this first, then they go into construction drawings. So that kind of got flipped. When things get flipped like that, you're prone for errors. And it's just the nature of the business. So, again, we can go back and forth and say what it is. I think if it's y'all's purview that you understand it and you want to make the change, then you are well within that right if that's your concern. I don't want you to think that you don't have that authority to do that.
Yeah.
But again, from a staff perspective, knowing the history of the project and the process, we're always going to just stick with the code on our recommendations.
okay.
This sounds, the more I listen to it, like a situation where rather than asking permission, you ask for forgiveness. Because all these problems with communication with all these different parties to whom you refer really seem to be resolved in most instances of applicants that come before us. Never heard such a problem. So it's okay, you don't have to respond. So in any case, what I've just stated is my opinion, so I'm not sure there's a response to it. I think you can hear me clearly seeing my view on this, whether or not you agree with it. And code is code. I try not to be too rigorous about that. We made an agreement on color or shade of blue, for instance. But this is a little bit more substantial, and I have a real problem with plan unit developments running away from us. And if I have a real hard time getting my head around this thing sitting there fallow for all these years. Then it gets built out, and it was started before Costco. But we're talking about this now, and Costco's been in business for a year plus. The whole thing is just misaligned and doesn't make sense. There's a lot of words, a lot of chapters cited, but this really, the flow of this is, as Mr. Lutz has stated, we can get lost in process, but nevertheless, here we are at the end of the process, and I just have to say, I'm not very pleased with what the process has given us.
I understand. I would also like to say this one last thing. Going up and down I-35 in the overlay district, same buildings and even different type buildings, there is not one building that this overhead door code has been enforced on any new construction or existing construction. This would be the first warehouse building in the overlay, the I-35 overlay district, that this section of code has been implemented. Y'all have had that code, but it has not been implemented through all the new construction and existing construction through the city of Kyle. And that's what's giving ProSource and a little bit of heartburn, along with they're not used to how glass reacts with forklifts and semi-trucks. It's just not standard. But the 50% glass garage doors, which these aren't garage doors, but that has not been enforced anywhere down I-35 overlay district in Kyle, new construction, recent construction, or old.
Okay. All right, any motions?
I make a motion to approve of the modifications and to keep the current door. I understand it's not in line with the current code. However, this is a delivery door. Drivers back into it. It's where inventory is stored. Sometimes forklift drivers poke these doors. I've seen it happen. If it was glass, then we're talking about now having to put up a whole nother glass door. At the end of the day, this isn't a door where you're going to want to peek in and see something pretty. It's literally just staged inventory. The showroom, if this was the door to the showroom, then I would be thinking, yeah, this is not what we want. But this is literally a delivery door, and it doesn't face anything. I don't see any issue with keeping it as is.
We have a motion. Anybody second?
I'll second the motion.
Okay, so we have motion by Commissioner Serrato and seconded by Commissioner Webb. All those in favor, say aye.
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 All those opposed, say nay.
Nay.
Motion, motion fails 2-3. Okay. Do you need us to?
I need some action tonight, so that motion dies, but if someone else wants to make another motion, that's on the table as well.
I hate to do this to you, but the glass door's got to go in. I mean, like you said, if we haven't been following the code and all these other businesses have gotten away with it, well, then it's time to enforce it. So I'm going to make a motion to have them put the glass doors in on that structure.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. All right, so item was motioned by Commissioner Houck and seconded by Commissioner Stiegel. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay.
Nay.
All right, motion passes 3-2. Okay,
Thank you, Commissioners.
thank you. All right. Item 4, consider approval of a request to increase the maximum allowed parking for a proposed Chuy's restaurant located at 18801 IH35 in Hays County, Texas, CUP-24-0121. Ms. Kayla.
Good evening, Commissioners. Kayla Sharp, Senior Planner for the record. So tonight we have a request for a Chuy's restaurant located at 18801 IH35. It is near kind of the intersection of I-35 and Windy Hill. They are proposing to construct a roughly 5,400 square foot restaurant. This request specifically is for an increase from the maximum allowed parking spaces per our code to 136 maximum parking spaces. We met with the applicant for a pre-development meeting, and staff indicated that the maximum allowed parking based on the square footage of the restaurant and our new parking requirements for restaurants would be 81 parking spaces maximum. In order to accommodate their business needs, the applicant is requesting 136 spaces maximum. So this is just kind of a quick analysis of their parking needs. Typical Chuy's restaurants require a minimum of 150 parking spaces. This 5,400 square foot restaurant will have around 50 tables and around 210 seats. And based on that, they could have about an average of 28 employees per shift at any given time. During peak times and shift changes, it could be even more than that. Given all of those numbers, they typically see about 100 and 125 guest cars and 28 or more employee vehicles on site at any given time. Staff did look at some other Chuy's in the area. Some of them were a little larger, some of them were closer to the size of this one, but they're all kind of around that same number of parking spaces, around that 140 to 150 range. And, you know, we saw aerials from all different days of the week, and don't know what time those aerials were taken, but based on the aerials we have, you know, the parking lots are almost always packed, and I'm sure many of you have been to a Chuy's where you find yourself in a similar circumstance, sometimes struggling to find parking. So based on the analysis provided by Chuy's and staff research, we believe this request is reasonable. So here is kind of the proposed layout for the site. This proposed layout provides 136 parking spaces and meets requirements for one tree within 50 feet of each parking space. Down the line, you'll see the more kind of complete site plan, landscape plan, photometric plan, elevations, things like that. But this is kind of their first step. They want to ensure they can get the parking that they need before they move forward with those other applications. And then this is kind of rough. Like I said, you'll see more finalized renderings when they come back for that conditional use permit for the I-35 overlay standards, but just so you kind of get an idea of what that would look like and kind of their landscape plan. So your options tonight are to approve the parking maximum increase to 136 spaces, approve with modifications, or deny. And as I mentioned, staff believes the request is reasonable and we are recommending approval.
Okay, thank you. Any questions? Okay. I have a couple, and if
We do have the applicant here,
the
yeah.
developer, if you don't mind, one of you stepping up. So,
Hi, good evening. Michael Hatcher with Chuy's.
okay, so my main concern here is that with the 136 spaces that you have, that you're asking for, is that that is not going to hinder any other, being able to park for any other businesses.
Correct.
And so that's my one concern, my major concern. I mean, I understand Chuy's is a little bit different from a lot of our restaurants that we have here, because of a lot of our restaurants are more family, and, you know, people gather in a car and go to the restaurant. Chuy's has a very active happy hour and such, where people meet at Chuy's more so than gather in a car and go together. So I understand the need for 4 more spaces. I just don't want to be hindering any other businesses.
No, we've been working with, sure, absolutely, yeah. John Switzer is the developer of the project.
Okay.
John Switzer with CSW Development.
Okay.
The project is a 3-pad site project. It has a fast food component, a furniture store, and Chuy's. Each of those parcels is self-contained parking per code.
Okay.
Those others may or may not meet the maximum code. You have a minimum and a maximum parking code. I believe the fast food will be the minimum side of that. I believe the retail will be the max side of that. They need about 50. Each of their sites have the ability to hit their maximum on their own parcel.
Okay.
Next to the Chuy's. The Chuy site's all contained as well. And the project is cross-parked by code, or by our development agreement with the different users.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions? Any motions?
I'm excited for y'all to come. That's all I can
Yes.
say.
We're excited.
I'll make a motion to approve the parking maximum increase to 136 spaces.
Second.
Okay. Motion by Councilmember Webb and seconded by Commissioner, sorry, Councilmember. See, it's because you were here. Okay, so Commissioner Webb and seconded by Commissioner Serrato. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Nay.
Motion passes 4-1.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
All right, now staff reports and presentation.
Good evening, Commissioners. As you can see from our agenda, we're sad to see, but Vice Chair Scheel, this will be her last meeting with us serving on the Planning and Zoning Commission. We really enjoyed having her leadership and expertise as not only a formal council member, she serves in volunteer capacity on many boards and commissions, and we really appreciated you serving on the Planning and Zoning Commission, and we're very sad to see you go. We have a nice
Aw, thank you.
proclamation, but we're going to keep it and give it to you once it's appropriately signed. And we're also going to give you your name plaque, so you can keep that with you for you can see your service. But I wanted to give the commission an opportunity to recognize you, and again, thank you for your service.
Well, thank you. This was not by choice. It is with deep regret that this has to happen, so we'll go from there.
And I will say, Kayla, after the meeting, handmade cookies for us, Christmas cookies for our last meeting of the year. So we'll be able to enjoy those. And staff also printed out new calendars for you with the updates on not only the Texas Chapter American Planning Association, but National American Planning Association for those dates. And we'll be following up with additional information to reach out to you if you would like to attend those conferences. Usually it should be covered by some of our travel and training budget that we have, not only for staff, but for commissioner training. So please check your schedules if those are something that you're interested in, and there'll be a little form to fill out, and the city can help you with the arrangements on those.
And also speaking in regards to the calendar, our usual fourth Tuesday meeting will not happen since that is on Christmas Eve. And I guess staff might want that night off, as well as us. So that meeting will not happen, okay? Just to make sure everybody knows.
Yep, this is our last meeting of this calendar year,
Yes.
for sure. All right, that's it from my end.
Okay, with that, I would like to first of all let everybody know to have a very safe holiday season and Merry Christmas, and try to stay warm. So this meeting, since we have no other agenda items, is adjourned at 7:18:19.